Welcome to the top global ranked and award-nominated grad school femtoring podcast, the place for first-gen BIPOCs to listen in on conversations about grad school and growth. In this podcast, you'll learn about all things higher education, personal development, and sustainable productivity. This is Doctora Yvette Martinez-Vu, and I will be serving as your femtor, providing you with tips and tricks and everything else you need to know to successfully navigate grad school and beyond. For over 14 years, I've been empowering first-gen students of color along their personal and professional journeys, and I'm really excited to support you too. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Grad School Femtoring Podcast. This is your host, Doctora Yvette. And today we're going to cover the topic of 5 steps to decolonize your money mindset. I know I've heard from some of my listeners in the past that you enjoy when I bring in speakers who can touch on topics related to financial literacy and personal finance. So I'm excited today that we have a special guest. Her name is Luzy King, and she's the founder of Say Hola Wealth, a coaching and consulting agency on a mission to help BIPOC and Latinas reclaim equitable financial prosperity. In 2019, Luzy was denied access to financial advice because she didn't have $100K to start investing. And now she has taught hundreds of first-gen wealth builders how to break into the stock market investing with as little as $50 per month. She is also the host of the Say Hola Wealth podcast, where she shares tips on money mindset, entrepreneurship, and investing. Welcome to the podcast, Luzy.
Hello. Thank you, Doctora, for having me. I'm excited to share some tips and tricks with your audience on how they too can become first-gen wealth builders.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn from you as well. So just to get us started, if you could tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do beyond what I said in the bio, and also anything you're comfortable sharing about your background and backstory and how you arrived at the place you are today.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So I am the daughter of a single mom who raised 5 kids on her own. And my parents separated when I was literally just a couple of days old. My mother decided to live in a very abusive relationship where she was also controlled a lot financially. And so she, of course, was in love with my father, but throughout their marriage, there was a lot of fights and arguments around money. And so my mother was always living in this financial stress, financial anxiety, and also a lot of controlling around money. So she made the decision that her last child, which was me, that she was just going to start fresh. She didn't have more than a 3rd level education. And so she just took it upon herself to live this marriage where she had to start from scratch. And so I always like to point out that in a way, I feel like I was born with a lot of financial trauma, because there is studies that actually show that we can become financially stressed when we are in our mother womb. And so because of me seeing this financial instability growing up, I knew that education was going to be my way out of poverty, my way out of living paycheck to paycheck. And so education to me became my heaven. Like, oh, I just want to learn as much as I need to. I just want to be in rooms where my ancestors never had access to. But I also knew that I wanted to continue to work to help my mom, not that she asked me to, but more so because I wanted to help. And so I was able to finish my high school. Even though at 14 years old, I dropped out of my junior high to get my first job, I was able to go back and finish my high school. I fell in love with the opportunity of going to a community college. And so I'm very grateful for community colleges because that was my first step into like higher education. And then I also earned my bachelor's through a community college. And so I've done everything that is required for us to quote unquote look successful on paper. I went to college, I went to high school. Eventually, I had a top executive career where I was managing $2.5 million a year. But the reality is that my personal finances were a mess. Like I had no idea on how these things work. I had no idea how to create a budget. I had no idea how to pay off debt. I have none of that knowledge, even though in my corporate career, every day I talk about accounting. Every day I talked about corporate finance, all of these things that make money. And so I'm very proud of where I come from because I've learned that I could keep complaining about like the past and how I was raised, or I can make the choice of saying, where can I find the knowledge? Where can I apply the knowledge? And where can I teach it back to Latinas in BIPOC?
Wow, there's so many parts of your story. I love that you shared that you're one of five. I'm one of six and was raised by a single mama, so I know we have some overlap there. You also shared your journey of schooling where you took a break or a pause or however you want to call it because you needed to prioritize making an income, went back, finished high school. Not only that, but went back, went to the community college. And I love that. We love community college graduates here. I feel like it's a great resource for a lot of folks, and I have a lot of respect. And I really admire folks who go the community college route. And then to go in and start a career, you said in what industry was it?
Yeah. So my second official job was as a housekeeper, scrubbing toilets. I used to
Uh-huh.
clean 25 toilets a shift. And so when I was 7 years old, that was actually one of my dream goals. Like I always knew that I wanted to become a hotel manager because I have always loved diversity. And so I work in
Uh-huh.
this industry for 15, 17 years. So from being a housekeeper to moving to the front desk, I climbed the ladder. I essentially made every job that was created for the industry. I did like housekeeper, front desk, supervisor. I became an assistant manager, evening manager, revenue manager, sales manager, marketing and strategy, like all of these. And so in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, I actually decided that it was time for me to go from this industry, primarily because I didn't have the support that I needed from upper management to really allow me to continue to be a mom, to continue to be
Mhm.
successful in my career. And so this was one of the hardest decisions that I've ever made because I had the guilt of how dare I to leave when I'm on the top, when I have a 401k, when I have so many privileges that my parents never got, specifically my mom. And so I just made the decision that it was time for me to leave, and I did. And I've always been a high achieving Latina, so I decided to put myself back in school. I have this identity of like, oh, I have to get prepared for when I go back to the workforce. And so I decided to go after my master's program. And through that process, I've learned about investing and I learned about financial literacy and I've learned about how you can make money through the stock market. And I still remember being in this finance class and, everything was through Zoom. And my professor saying
Mhm.
like, oh, but this is how you can build generational wealth. And that was the first time
Wait,
in
wait,
my
wait,
life where I heard generational
wait.
wealth. Like I was like, what is that? Like, please tell me because I've never heard
Yeah.
the term and because I've always liked education. I'm always looking for like, I don't know what that means. Please explain it to me. And so he went ahead and talked about how wealthy people invest in the stock market, how wealthy people create jobs, how wealthy people hire their children to create trust funds and all of these things that I was just like, well, nobody's teaching this to me. Nobody's teaching this to my
Mhm.
people. Nobody like taught me this in high school. And I still remember actually taking the time to reflect like did I actually learn that and I forgot, right? Like trying to like make myself feeling guilty, like was I not paying attention? But then I learned, no, these are things that we really are not taught any of these at all.
Mhm. What graduate program was that? Because I know most graduate programs are not talking about financial literacy, personal finance, and especially not wealth building. So if it's
Yeah,
okay
so
to
this
ask.
was this was my finance class for my MBA, for master's in business administration. I've always
That makes
I feel
sense.
like I've always had this entrepreneur spirit in me because at a young age, because we had so much financial instability. Like I was selling tomatoes, I was selling carrots, whatever I needed to sell to make money, I will sell. Like I will literally sell. And so that class taught me the things that I wish I would have known when I was probably 18 years old.
Yeah. And well, today you're here to talk about decolonizing your money mindset. So I can imagine that there's been a lot of you bringing together your experiences and your identities and tying that with all the wealth of knowledge that you've gained, both educationally, professionally, and also from your experiences too. So I would love to dive into the topic
Yeah.
of today and have you let us know, like, first, kind of what do you mean when you say decolonize your money mindset? I know we all define and use the term decolonize and decolonizing differently. So what does that mean to you? And how, like, why is it important for, especially our listeners, first gen BIPOC, perhaps children of immigrants, Latinas, Latinas, like, why is it important for populations that you and I are a part of to learn about decolonizing our money mindset?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. I'm gonna geek out right now because I just love talking about this so much. So let me start by answering the second question that you asked, like why is that so important to me? So when I started my journey, and when I'm talking about my journey, I mean like actually making that time to look at my finances and say, what are my debts? Where are my liabilities? What are my assets? Where am I truly financially? And especially because I didn't have income coming, right? Like my husband was working, but I didn't have income coming. So for the first time, I had to really be realistic about where am I financially and what am I going to do about it, which a lot of people have a lot of fear about that. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. And so one of the things that I've noticed as I started my well building journey was that there was a lot of shame when it came to money. If I was looking at someone that in our society they call experts, there was a lot of shame about the way we spend. There was a lot of shame about if you're not being frugal, how dare you? You're making a mistake. There was a lot of moral value attached to our debt. There was a lot of value attached to our worth. There was a lot of moral value attached to the lack of money in the bank account or the abundance of money. And so that didn't sit well with me because I was still experiencing a lot of financial trauma and a lot of money wounds that were coming up. Every time I wanted to look at my finances, my body will physically react to it like, oh my God, we're not ready for this, right? Like I will feel like I was losing my breath. Sometimes I will feel like shaky, like I just don't want this. And so that was the missing piece for me as a first generation Latina, as daughter of immigrant parents, that was missing from the literature that was already built by people that don't look like us. And then if I look back, the people that are teaching this concept, they are literally millionaires, but they're teaching us, people of color, that we have to be frugal, that we have to cut expenses, that going into a restaurant is a quote unquote stupid mistake, right? And so I thought, well, only in this country do rich people tell poor people that they have to be frugal, that they have to cut expenses, and that they're making quote unquote stupid decisions. So I didn't like the language at all. And so I started diving into, well, why are we hearing this conflicted narrative, right? Because we value education. And again, for people like us, education is the first stepping stone. But there's also shame when it comes to having a student loan debt. Like even thinking about the language that is used, like apply for a student loan forgiveness. It's like, have we done anything wrong? Like, why should I be asking for forgiveness when it comes to my loans, right? And so I realized that in our society, our mind and our money mindset has been colonized to only accept the narrative of the people that are the wealthiest people in this country. And I didn't like that. And so then I talk about how can I, as a first generation Latina, look at how colonialism, our cultura, and colonial and capitalism, how is that shaping the way we think about money? So to me, that is like decolonize is understanding the three C's. How has all of these three C's really affected the way I view money? Because for some of us, especially as for generation or BIPOC, when we think about wealth, we like to turn around and say, that's not for us. When in reality, wealth has no color. Wealth is for everyone, But because we are taking information from the people that look white, that are wealthy, we're like, well, I don't look like that. I don't want to be like them, right? And so that's what it means to me to decolonize your money mindset. Essentially unlearning the societal and cultural beliefs that are associated with money.
That takes us straight into the next question, which is great, which is what are some of these beliefs? What are the beliefs that you associate that we need to unlearn? They might be limiting beliefs, they might be common narratives or dominant narratives around money. You already mentioned some of them about like thinking about money as oh my gosh, I'm um something that only certain types of people have access to. You didn't mention this, but I know that another thing that comes up a lot is associating money with like you said earlier, the moral value of
Mm-hmm.
like it being a good thing or a bad thing. So yeah, if you can say a little bit more about that, about these
Yeah,
common beliefs and narratives.
absolutely. So, for example, in our cultura, specifically like in the Latinx cultura, we see money as the source of all evil, right? And you can have
Mm,
a PhD, because I've coached people that have PhDs, and you still believe that to be true, right? You're like, oh, I don't want to have money because I don't want people to think that I'm unkind. I don't want to be disliked. Like we even fear the fact that we like money. And there's a lot of people that say, like, I don't want people to see me as money hungry because that's associated with not being worthy, right? So that's one
mm-hmm.
belief. Another belief is that self-sacrifice is actually something that we should like want to do all the time, especially as mujeres, right? Like self-sacrificing is like,
Mm,
eres una bendita, we're going to put you in a pedestal. When in reality, if we look at our cultura, a lot of our mothers, grandmothers have done so much soul sacrifice. And that's why we continue to be on the cycle of poverty, the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, the cycle of even being in relationships where we are physically or verbally abused because of money, right? So we have to break the cycle. The other thing associated with money is that money is power, and in our society and our cultura, money or power is bad, right? Like we're like, I don't want to have power because A, what if someone takes it from me? And two, what if people dislike me, right? So there's so much association
mm-hmm.
between wealth and worthiness that we need to separate. There are two different things. Another thing that I'm thinking is we fear having money because we are misinformed and we think that more money, more taxes. Like, just think about that for a second. More money, more taxes, right? So the first step into decolonizing the money mindset is really unlearning all of this cultural baggage, societal baggage, and the colonial baggage that was gifted to us. We didn't ask for it, right? It just came. And so that's the first step. The second step is we need to really start separating that everything that we do has to have an ROI. Our society thrives on that marketing of everything you do has to have an ROI. From the moment we decide to have a college degree, right? The ROI is the big diploma, like you made it, here it is. But oftentimes we don't talk about the cost of inaction, which is the COI. What are the things that you're truly not doing that are costing you more than anything else, right? For example,
Mm-hmm.
people like me who couldn't look at their finances, like, what is that really costing me? It was costing me not being in my purpose. It was costing me not monetizing the gifts that I already had because I had the identity of, well, I work hard for my degree. I work hard to be where I am. So I cannot leave this role because eventually my job title became my whole identity, right? So understanding the difference between those two, inaction, versus the ROI is so important, and getting clear on like where are you, right? Because some people are like, well, I have a student loan debt, I have a PhD, and I'm going to be debt free in 30 years. That's like modern slavery. We have to let go of that identity that we only have to pay off our debt when, quote unquote, the system gives us permission to pay it back. That's the length of your loan, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to or shouldn't pay it off in 10, 5 years. And also when it comes to debt, we're so afraid of leveraging, right? Because we have been told that debt has more value. It's either good or bad. And you will see this on the marketing that we get every day. Credit cards are bad. Student loans are good. A mortgage is good. But in reality, is what happens when you have the need of maybe leveraging a credit card so you can go to therapy. Our society doesn't value mental health as a way of like, I'm going to invest in myself, right? So really just see like underneath the layers of all this marketing that we see. And then the next step will be really understanding that as Latinas in BIPOC, even if you are 18 years old right now, you have to ask for help. We're overachievers. We're used to doing it alone. We're used to being on this survival identity. And so one of the things that I now correct people is when people ask me like, what's the book you recommend? I will say, let me actually give you the name and the email of the person who can mentor you. So that's the other thing. As Latinas in BIPOC, we haven't been introduced to the power of mentorship because we never had access to. And so building your board of directors of the people that are going to help you get where you want to get. And you can get whatever you want, right? Like for me, I want to become the first millionaire in my family and more than halfway there. I'm now angel investor of Latina-owned businesses. And I like to say it out loud, not only to show other Latinas in BIPOC that they too can do it, but because I have to remind myself of why I started this process, right? And then the next one is how can you really understand what I just mentioned, the 3 C's? How are they holding you from living your purpose? Sometimes we have the identity of, oh, well, things are the way they are. I'm just happy. I should be thankful I have a job. But it's like, are you happy? Right. And a lot of people can't make the time to answer that question. Like, are you truly happy with your life? Are you happy with what you have? And I don't want people to say, well, yeah, I have a home, I have a job. It's like, are you happy? Like, did you wake up just so excited to say, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to help and I'm going to live in my purpose? 99% of the population will say, no, I hate my job, right? Or it's just a paycheck. Like, I wake up every day knowing that my business, Say Hola Wealth, is creating generational wealth and generational change in our communities. And so that fuels me to wake up excited, to feeling like I'm going to make a big difference in this world, and also to show other people, like your listeners, that they too can become cycle breakers and that they too can start building generational wealth. And when it comes to capitalism, colonialism, and our cultura, I can be here for hours, but I know that we have limited time to do that. And then the last step will be have the audacity. We have to have the audacity to say, I want that. Like, how many times, Doctora, I'm going to put you on the spot. Like, how many times have you actually said that you want to become the first millionaire in your family?
I don't think I've ever said that.
Right? So have the audaciousness to say, I want to become that. Because I remember when I said it for the first time, the words would not even come out of my throat. They were like stuck right here. And I'm touching my neck for those of you that are listening. I could not say like, I want to become the first millionaire in the family, because I was like, what if no one loves me if I have money? And again, that was because of my early childhood experiences with money and my association with money. And so once I start telling people, I want to become the first millionaire, hey, I have people that are like, this girl is crazy. I have people that say like, oh gosh, she thinks she's too much. I'm going to go. And I'm like, thank you for leaving me because you were not part of my people. But now it's like when I say it, my body, like literally just me saying that right now to you, my body's like excited, like, hell yes, we're going to become the first millionaire. And for me, becoming that is more than just having the money. Because the way I view money, for me, it's not a currency, right? That's our society. There's a dollar value attached to money. For me, it's about the impact. Like, how am I going to to leverage this money, of course, to serve me and my family. But how am I going to leverage this money to put cash back in the hands of my community of people of color? Even the way I purchase things right now has changed in the last 5 years. If I, for example, I'm having my first keynote tomorrow. And so I'm going to be wearing shoes from a
Ooh.
Latina. I'm wearing a dress from a Latina designer. I'm wearing a lipstick from a Latina, right? So I'm using my money as a way of putting money back on the hands of those mujeres. And that's how I build money. That's how I build wealth. How can I use my money to invest in Latina owned brands? How can I use my money to help with scholarships? How can I use my voice to create resources for my community, for Latinas, BIPOC? How can I use my essence and my purpose that money has given me back so I can teach other people that money is just a source of energy, and that when we have money, we're not taking from other people.
Oh my goodness. That was a keynote in and of itself. And it's funny because I just gave a keynote, like just like
I saw that.
not
I saw the
just a
post.
week and a half ago. So it's felicidades on that. And also, oh my goodness, I feel like I just want to have a personal conversation with you because you called me out and you said, have you ever said out loud that you want to be the first millionaire in your family? And I flat out said no. But see, for me, I started my financial literacy journey when I finished grad school. I got my PhD. I was 26, 26 at the time. It was 2016, and I realized I knew nothing. I got my first job out of my PhD and was in the negative. I wasn't making enough to support my family or anything. And so now it's, 2024, several years later. I have had a lot of time to learn more about financial literacy and personal finance. So it doesn't seem so distant to me to think big like that, especially now as an entrepreneur, surrounding myself with other successful women of color entrepreneurs who are way ahead of me. But I see them and I'm like, oh, that's a possibility. So I have that support, the peer mentorship, sponsorship, etc. But I can't help but think of my listeners where this might feel so far away for them, where they're just barely starting their financial literacy journey, where they're still trying to learn, what does ROI even stand for? Or, actually, you taught me something. The cost of inaction was not a phrase that I had heard. I usually talk about things in terms of ROI and opportunity costs, and I talk about grad school in those terms as well, because I don't think grad school is for everyone. And honestly, for a lot of people, a lot of folks are over credentialed and under earning. That's just the truth, especially for women of color. But anyway, going back to my audience, going back to the folks who may be here thinking, wow, this sounds really nice and it's great that you're pursuing it. But what about me? What can I do that's a baby step that can set me up for success in the future? What if they think, wow, that seems so far away, but also it seems like something that I would love to have access to. I would love to use money as a resource, as a way to create impact, opportunities, an exchange of energy. They want it, but they don't know what to do.
Yes.
What would you tell them?
I will tell them, create the identity and the habits before you have the money. Let me give you an example. When I started my journey, my household was paying $220,000 in a student loan debt, and we paid it off in 36 months. I wanted to invest so badly that I had the audacity to go into a financial planning office thinking, oh my God, I have $5,000 and I'm just going to start right now. And they told me no. They said, you have to have 100,000. So please come back when you have the money. And I felt like a slap on the face, like, wow, I don't have the money right now. And a lot of your listeners that are younger, they don't have 100,000. They don't have maybe even $50. Some of them really don't even have extra $50 a month. And so what I will say is gain the knowledge first, because once you have the knowledge, then the steps become easier. So when I started my journey, I started investing with $50 because that's all I could really afford at that time. And also, I had to unlearn and decolonize my money mindset so much. And so I needed to have the proof that the stock market can actually work for me. But if I waited until I had, like, let's say $1,000 or $10,000, I would probably still be waiting, right? And so start with the small habits and the small amounts because they do compound. Once I had my first dividend pay, I remember jumping and being like, oh my God, this actually works. My money can make me money. And then those are the things, right? Don't wait until people think that financial literacy is something that you are going to read a book and then be like, oh, I'm good. I have the knowledge. But financial literacy is actually a journey. Why? Because the more you learn, the better you're going to become at managing your money. And when I'm talking about managing, I'm not talking about micromanaging every cent you earn. I'm talking about allowing your money to just be where it needs to be, whether it's in investments, whether it's in real estate, whatever that is, right? But then the journey becomes greater when you start earning more money. Like I still remember that day when I made my first $10,000 in my business. And I used to have to work 4 months in my corporate career to make $10,000 as a top executive. And so then once I had the money coming, I knew exactly what I needed to do, right? So for those listeners is don't wait until you have the money. Act as if you already had the money today. What are the habits that you will create? You probably look at your money, and everyone should be looking at their money at least once a day, like at least. Not from a place of no me alcanza, like I don't have enough, but actually from a place of what am I going to do with this money? How is this money going to serve me? And then 2, the habits, right? Are we spending hours on TikTok versus spending 20 minutes a day learning about financial literacy? And for the younger generation, there are so many resources out there right now for them to really just grasp like the whole concept, but understand that the longest relationship we're always going to have in a lifetime is with money. So there's not a checkbox that said, I'm done with financial literacy, or there's not a certificate that says, you've graduated, congrats, here is your financial literacy certificate. Because just this week, I manage my own portfolio, but I also have a financial planner for our family business. I went and met with him and I knew exactly what questions I wanted to ask him. And then he taught me something new that I never, ever found written in a book, and I've read more than 12 books on financial literacy. But he taught me a new concept, and I'm drooling as I'm listening to him. I was like, oh, tell me more. How does that work? And he's explaining to me. And I was just like, oh my God, like even me that I've been diving into financial literacy and wealth building for 5 years now, there's always something new that I can learn. So again, and start your journey knowing that this is going to be the longest relationship you're going to have. There's times when you're going to have a very high, I love financial literacy. There's going to be times when you're like, I'm tired of financial literacy, but that's okay. As long as you're moving, you're going to get there. And then I'm also going to add a couple more things for my younger generation is that in our society, we are our parents' retirement fund, right? As first gen, we are our parents' retirement plan. And you have to really just say that you're not going to be that. And let me explain. We tend to earn money and then we're like, okay, I have to pay back to my parents, right? Your parent had the same belief. I have to work hard and then give the money back to my parents. And then your abuelita had the same belief. My mother worked so hard, I have to give money back to my parents. And that became a cycle And then that cycle is called the cycle of poverty and the cycle of believing that wealth is not for us. So you have to be the one that says, if I truly want to help my parents, I have to prioritize my investments. I have to prioritize decolonizing my own money mindset, because you need to find the proof that it works for you. Once you have that, then you can come back to your parents, to your tios, your cousins, the neighbor, whoever you want to, and say, listen, I'm building wealth through financial literacy and stock market investing, and this is how it works, right? And so then your energy shifts from I have to be my parents' retirement plan to I choose to be my parents' retirement plan. Like, I still help my mother financially, but she became an investor at 65 years old. So you have to be the cycle breaker before you save your family. You have to save yourself. And especially like for you too, Doctora, like you have children. I have children. Our retirement has to be priority, because we will not be able to apply for retirement loans. Our children will have the ability, if they want to, apply for student loan debt, but we won't have the luxury.
I 100% agree with you. Which is why, my kids may not like it, but it's like, yeah, we got to prioritize our own investments, our own retirement, put our mask on first, as they say time and time again. I'm glad that you mentioned that, though, about how for a lot of us who are part of the Latina community, we are, like, by default expected to fund our parents' retirement. And a lot of us are also part of the sandwich generation. So we've got dependents, and then we may also be a caregiver for our aging parents. And it puts us in a really tricky situation, especially with the loss of pensions. And I don't think a lot of people who don't have an understanding of financial literacy have this awareness of that urgency that we need to have about not just wealth building, but actually just saving for retirement. Oh, no, investing for retirement and
Yeah.
saving for retirement.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that. Like, we will not have a retirement fund if we do not invest ourselves.
Yeah.
And I hope that folks kind of start to get that in their head, and it plants a seed in them to start investing, maybe initially for retirement and then eventually for wealth building as well, or both at the same time. Yeah, so I wanted to actually, you already kind of dived into what you would say to our listeners. Is there anything that you would go back in time, if you could go back to your younger self, to your inner niña? Is there anything you would tell her that you wish you would have known now?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
There's so many things that I will tell her. Thinking of my corporate career, I will tell my inner niña that she does not need to code switch to fit in. I will tell my inner niña that she can be as loud and as audacious as she feels she needs to be. And I will also tell her that she needs to negotiate. She needs to become the greatest negotiator, because I didn't negotiate my salary enough when I was in my corporate career, out of fear of ¿qué tal si me corren? Like, what if they fire me? Out of fear of, like, what if they think that I'm greedy, right? Like, all of this money narrative was very present in my career. And I will also tell her that she needs to find mentorship, that she needs to start finding mentorship. I hired my first mentor in 2019, but throughout my career, I had this identity of, oh my God, yo soy una chingona, like I'm a badass, I can do it all. And so I wish I would have told myself, hire mentors. Hire mentors, hire a therapist. That's the other thing I will do too. Hire a therapist, because you deserve to have these board of directors that maybe are 5 people, 7 people, and it's okay for you to ask for help. Like right now, my board of director looks like I have a therapist, I have a business coach, I manage my investments, but I also have a financial planner. I have friendships that are very, very rich in understanding my passions versus like just consuming my time. Like I have 0 toxic friendships right now. And I'm very grateful for that. So I will tell my inner niña, just like ask for help and see yourself as the biggest investment that you're ever going to make. Because I didn't start investing in myself again until 2019. And now I've invested more money in myself than I've ever had in years, right? And sometimes I think I will also tell her that not everything, that I don't have to ask for everything to be for free. Let me give an example. When I was going to community college, there were a lot of free resources where I just felt like I needed to apply for, right? Because financially I needed a help. But also, I will tell her that it's okay to spend money on herself. Like, it's okay to hire the mentor. It's okay to hire the coach, because time is the only thing that is non-refundable, right? So looking back, if I would have start everything from scratch, I would probably be a billionaire right now, not a soon to be millionaire, but a billionaire, right? But we have to change our relationship with time and our relationship with how we ask for help.
I see that comes up a lot because I too am an entrepreneur, and I have a lot of consultations, and there are sometimes folks who are, various different income levels who say, "Oh my goodness, like I don't know if I can afford your services." And I understand that. I've been there, I've done that. I've been on the other end saving all my pennies to work with someone, because I did have that understanding when I was in school that, wow, this person has several more years of experience than me, and I could gain a lot from them. So I'm glad that you mentioned that the relationship between money as a resource energy exchange, and also time, another form of resource and energy exchange that you can't quite get back, but you can get ahead with the support of someone who has more experience, knowledge, awareness, etc. than you. Okay, so we're getting ready to wrap up, but I don't want to wrap up without having you tell us a little bit more about your business and your services, and also how folks can connect, reach you, and support your work.
Yes, thank you for asking that. So right now, there's a couple of ways that people can work with me. One is through the Say Hola Wealth Academy, which is a group coaching program where I talk about the entire financial journey, from decolonizing your money mindset and all the way to understanding the entire financial planning process. I give my members access to software that wealthy people use just so they can track their goals, track their net worth, and really start seeing money from a place of there's so much money, there's abundance. And then the other way is I have a mastermind called Jefas and Wealth. And this is for Latina professionals who want to monetize their skill set outside their 9 to 5, because I truly believe that entrepreneurship is the key to building generational wealth. And I also offer private coaching. So private coaching is 6 months. And I help my clients 10x their investment. So the price range that I have is very different from the academy to private mentorship, but I'm fully committed to helping my clients 10x the investment. So if someone invests $2,000 with me, I'm going to give them $20,000 value, but also through investing, I will show them like, hey, if you invest this money, right? And this is after we done like the part of decolonizing the money mindset so they can trust themselves. I like to show them the potential of their money. I like to see them. Some clients, I teach them how to negotiate their salary at the same time, how like we're negotiating salary, we're investing, and we're increasing income at the same time. And so I'm very passionate about helping people get their investment back. And that's like my promise. Like, I want to help you get your investment back because I want them to see the possibilities of asking for more investing. And I have a podcast. It's called Say Hola Wealth, that I give a lot of free content there. And I also have a weekly newsletter series called Cash Libre, which I'm actually writing a book that is going to launch in 2026. It's titled Cash Libre. But again, don't wait until you like, I'm going to wait for her book. It's like, if you are ready to invest in yourself, which I hope you are, come look for me. I'll be happy to work with you.
That was wonderful. I love that you shared a range of different services and offerings, and you shared with us how folks can be in touch with you. What social platforms are you on that we might be able to follow you on?
Yeah. So I am on Instagram. I am on LinkedIn. I'm also on TikTok, and they're all Say Hola Wealth. And I name my business that because I want people to just feel excited when they think about wealth, like Say Hola Wealth, like it's for me. And I serve Latinas and BIPOC. I do have a couple clients that are neither of those, but I feel more inclined to help them because we are the ones that have faced the most, economic barriers, injustice. And so
Yeah.
I like to help them through a holistic lens.
I love that. Well, I just want to take a moment just to thank you so much, Lucy, for your time, for the wealth of knowledge that you shared with us, for telling us more about who you are, your background, and I felt inspired. I know you said you're like, I've got a keynote coming up. I'm like, I love it when I hear someone and it motivates me to take action. And I hope that I'm sure that my listeners will feel the same way. So muchas gracias. It's been lovely. And yes, please continue to stay in touch, and we'll encourage our listeners to stay in touch with you as well.
Thank you so much for having me, Doctora. Thank you for sharing your audience with me. And let's go ahead and build wealth juntos.
Thanks so much for joining me in the Grad School Femtoring podcast. If you like what you heard, here are 4 ways you can support the show. The first is to make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you email me a screenshot, I'll send you a surprise freebie. The second way is to get your copy of my free Grad School Femtoring resource kit, which includes essential information to prepare for and navigate grad school. You can access it at the link in today's show notes. The third way to support my show is to follow me on social media. You can find me on Instagram with the handle @GradSchoolFemtoring and on LinkedIn by searching my name. The last way to show your love is to order a copy of Is Grad School for Me, my graduate school admissions book for first-gen BIPOCs. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.
Part of the Boundless Audio Podcast Network.